I've lived it many,
Yeah.
many, many times. Fall into all the vices that you can name, from alcohol to drugs to weed to cheating to porn to stealing to lying. I did all of it, and I went through a journey of taking full responsibility and really looking at myself and no longer blaming the world and acknowledging with people that, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I lied to you. Yeah, I cheated. Yeah, I stole. I did all the things. And that was really fucking hard.
Mario, I'm so glad that you are here. Thank you. You know that with Crazy Beautiful Truth, we are talking about loving ourselves back to life, back into our lives, into vitality and courage and creativity. And I'm curious, what comes up for you? What does that phrase mean to you?
Yeah. Thank you, Sheila. That's a great phrase. To me, that's, love is an activating force. If you look at, in my case, especially the business landscape, a lot of founders, they're not really alive. They're more functioning, they're operating, they're reacting to problems and to circumstances. And when I hear that phrase, it's almost like a reclaiming of who you are at your core. It's a coming back to what's actually already there, but what you have forgotten, where there's this veil that has been placed over your eyes, the veil of deception, the veil of self illusion. And love is this sense of, I I wake up from the dream and I realize that it's all been perfect all this time. I've always been home. So loving yourself back into life is like a remembering. And when we operate from that place in which we also don't have to have the weight of always having to know. So I have to figure it out. I have to make a plan. I have to attack. I have to be ready. It's this deeper sense of knowing that life unfolds in seasons. And to me, all of that is packed in there.
What I hear you describing is an awakening of freedom. There's a
Mm,
freedom, a liberation in what I
yeah.
hear you describing that I appreciate around this phrase. Is that accurate? Is that
Yeah. Yeah.
woven in
Yeah.
there for
Very
you?
much.
So, how do you respond to, the people, because I know that I deal with this question a lot, is, all of that presence and not needing to worry, how does that actually get problem solved?
Mm,
Right? Do you
mm,
have, I don't know, how do you respond to that question?
mm. I would first of all bring in an understanding of a frame. And that's one of my favorite quotes by Albert Einstein. I'm paraphrasing. He said that you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. Or you could say you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. And worrying is a fear-based consciousness. And so the problem that you are facing, that you say, yeah, but I can't just not worry about this or else the problem won't get fixed. What if you being so worried and so controlling actually caused you to have this problem in the first place? And what if you accessing a level of thinking or a level of consciousness where you no longer worry, but where you trust, where you relax? And to someone that operates at a level of worry, relax sounds like a stupid thing to do. But that's because their frame isn't set at a higher level. Their frame is set at a lower level where you're in a survival place. And when you're in a survival place, the thing that makes sense to you is worry, figure things out now. Quick, 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 quick. Okay, now it's like the house is burning. And so if the house is burning to you, then you need a hose and you need to, water it down so that you extinguish the fire. But in a larger scale of view, you could say maybe the house needs to burn down. So I could finally realize that it's me that keeps setting all the fires, or that it is me that keeps buying cheap houses that are destined to burn. And then I can step out of that short-term reactive frame that keeps perpetuating the same problems again and again and again, and I can actually solve the problem so that it stops occurring. But that requires a whole transcendence that unfortunately many people aren't willing or aren't able to go through.
I've been an executive coach and facilitator now for more than 20 years, but I was a lawyer before that and in banking before that. And in those early days, I learned and I was taught as a child, my intellect was what set me apart, was what drove success. I'd better be the smartest person in the room or the most creative thinking, all of those kinds of things. And my journey of coaching took me through necessarily, we do so much self-awareness work when we do this work for others, teaching me that what if it isn't just my brain, but it's also my presence or my intuition or my all of those other things that you are mentioning. And I tell you, that sounded like you might as well be throwing me into the lion's den. Because what it felt like for me is, what do you mean? Don't you villainize my brain? Without that, I will lose my competitive edge and my drive and my fire. You know, and Mario, I'll say on this side of it, I did lose some of the drive and I did lose some of the fire, and it has only been of service to me and to my work and to my clients. But it's a head trip. So why do you think this work matters so much now? It's coming up more. I know, you know, and I'll say to the listener, I actually am on Mario's mailing list, and their emails I actually read because they're helpful. And I hear you speaking to these kinds of things. Why now?
Because we're going through a mega shift in consciousness in the world. And I would distinguish that in two categories. We have the fear versus the faith-based consciousness. One is operating from hyper technologized AI kind of driven solution thinking. It's okay, how do I produce more? How do I increase my speed of moving forward? And you just need to look at the evidence. You just need to look at people. Right? If technology and AI was truly the holy grail in the way that it is being communicated, then wouldn't we see a world of people that are just happy, healthy, living together in unity? You would see countries thriving on all fronts. But the reality is the opposite of that. So it's like, if the technological argument would actually hold true, we are now far more technologically advanced than any of the civilizations that we've seen before. Yet our problems, especially in health, are so far worse than any of the generations before. And we have this thinking that says, yeah, but we live so much longer. Yeah, but why is length a determining factor for quality? You can live 90 years and be totally, absolutely miserable. Or you could say, I live 50 years, but I am fully alive. Look at the quality of what we have produced as a society. You know, you told me you love art. Just take music. I mean, modern music is just awful. It all sounds the same. It lacks a soul. I was born in 1988, and I listened to a lot of music from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, some of it. But like a lot of the quality music just came from that era. Nowadays, it just sounds the same, and it's all about, you know, sex and violence and I'm better than you. And so you can see a lot of these indicators. You look at the youth today; they're full of technology, but they're terrible. They're miserable, like in so many ways, and people are becoming these mindless zombies that are totally checked out. My sister-in-law, she's a teacher. Her and I, we had a conversation the other day, and she told me something. I was shocked. Her class, the average age there is 12, 13 years old. And she asked the kids, what are your hobbies? 3 of them were able to give them a hobby. 3. All of them said, we don't have hobbies. And then she said, what do you mean? What do you do when you get home? Well, we're on TikTok. When we get home, we're on TikTok, and then we eat. And then we're again on TikTok until we go to sleep. And she's like, this is happening throughout all of the school, and this is not an incident. And so for me, then the technological argument just fails. And then you look at the other side, and it's the faith-driven sort of consciousness. And that's people that are not saying technology is evil or bad. They're saying, how can I use technology to enhance my life in a way so I have more of the things that bring me joy, freedom, peace, love, self-realization, service to others, so that I get the things away from me that don't bring me that. That's why I would say nowadays this conversation is so incredibly important because the way that I look at the world is what really drives progress is human consciousness and it's life quality. Not, can we reach Mars the fastest, or can we build the smartest, best cars and computers? That's nice, but it's like, what's the point? If we're living an unhappy, unhealthy society that fights each other all the time, then what's the point of going to Mars or Jupiter or wherever?
Because wherever we go, there we will be.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm going to push on you about the music only because my kids have been educating me. So I'll say where, I'm appreciating that there are some singer-songwriters. So I just want to hold space for the possibility that there are artists still capturing the tenor of a culture, the mood of a generation. And what is concerning to me, it's interesting you point to music, because I have listened to the same songs that you're talking about where I'm listening going, I can't. I am too protective of my brain to listen to this. And I'm thinking in particular, my youngest daughter who's headed off to university in 2 weeks, she played elite level soccer for years. And what they would listen to on the way to the games, the playlist, to pump themselves up, they were listening to the beat, they were listening to the tone, they were not listening to lyrics. And I'm listening to the lyrics, gripping white-knuckled on the steering wheel going, are you hearing what I'm hearing? And what concerns me is what gets dropped in to the consciousness, what is absorbed, even though they're just picking up beats, right? Yeah. They're trying to raise their heart rate and they're trying to get ready for a game. Yeah. So I hold out for the possibility that there are artists who are capturing the best of the culture, not just the lowest common denominator. But you point to something interesting, and it's this idea of not being alive and being alive, and the contrast between those two things. How do you think the average person begins to notice they've lost the connection to their aliveness? Like, what are the symptoms or signs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the symptoms are the things that we so often complain about. Starting with the self. Okay, I don't like the way my body looks. I'm not happy with it. I don't like the fact that I'm not working out, that I'm not eating healthy. I don't like the fact that I'm waking up and I feel a sense of dread for the day ahead. And I don't feel present in my relationships. I feel somewhat tapped out. And I feel a sense of this strong sense of pressure. It's everything is on me, and also the sense of like the whole world is against me. I would say those are some of the signs. And when it comes to work, there's a sense of I'm really just doing it because I want to pay the bills. And maybe I can go on some cool trips, but to bring your quote back in, it's like, there I am. Where no matter what I do, it's just meh. It's just like, yeah, it's nice, meh. And then we wonder why we have such strong numbers in addictions, and whether that's food related, alcohol, weed, prescription drugs. It's rampant everywhere in Western society.
I'll add technology to that list.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've certainly experienced many, if not all of them myself, so I can recognize it, and I've built that awareness, and I can see that whenever my sense of aliveness dips, my need for any of these stimulants goes up every time.
Yeah. I find that's, one of the other symptoms is also this pervasive numbness. This sense of, is this all there is?
Yeah.
And when it's not quite, depression, clinical depression, all of those things, anxiety, I think would also fall in this list. But this thing that falls before depression, that is just this, what's the point? And today's the same as yesterday. And I learned this word, I'm a word nerd, and it shouldn't have been a new concept to me, but the idea is anhedonism. Have you heard of this?
Anhedonism.
Anhedonism.
No,
and it's the opposite of hedonism. And apparently the way that it's being talked about more recently is this inability to feel pleasure, enthusiasm, excitement. And I just thought, man, if there is a word that captures my concern for the human experience at this moment, it is this anhedonism. The fact that we lose our enthusiasm, that we lose connection with our awe and our wonder, our connection to ourselves, to source, to God, to that which we believe in that is bigger than us, and to one another and our communities. Are you running into this too in your work?
This a lot with especially my clients. A lot of them are male founders, and they just bury themselves in work. It's actually because my work is about identity and emotions and helping them break free from the identity constraints that they're inside of. The beginning part is often so hard because they're like, I don't feel anything. It's just like, How are you feeling? Yeah. Okay. Not good. Bad. And there's like, it's like someone completely cut off the connection to their emotional field.
Yes.
And that's, I think, what you're describing there.
Yes. And, for me, one of the reasons that these conversations become so urgent or so timely is this as well, this numbness that I'm seeing that is contagious. Speaking of artists, current artists, I heard Taylor Swift in an interview, and she actually said something to the effect of, and this really struck a chord with me, the worst kind of person is somebody who makes somebody else feel stupid for their excitement and enthusiasm. And I thought, oh, there's hope. There's hope. We should be able to be excited, that we should be able to show this, and even better, to share our enthusiasm for one another's successes and celebrations and awakeness. And the human condition is hard right now with AI and technology, as you're pointing to, for sure. You talk about self-doubt. Your TEDx is coming up on 3 million views. Is that still the accurate number?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's good. And I really appreciate the reframe and anything that makes us question what we think we knew. And this idea that self-doubt is of service, right? These things that we would normally put in the category of, oh, here is a sign I am not enough. Talk to me about self-doubt when, so for me, self-doubt can show up in a number of different ways. If I make this very personal, one, it can look like procrastination. So it's not actually a voice in my head doubting. It's just avoidance of the thing altogether. And it's not until I sit and get still and get quiet and go, I've been talking about doing this 3 days in a row and I've done nothing with it. What's that about? That I realize maybe I don't think I'm up to it, or maybe I have the sense of who do I think I am, or maybe I'm afraid that I'm going to do it wrong. So this is where I can pick up the signs of self-doubt. Very occasionally, it will actually be the self-talk in my head that the self-doubt will show up. My journey has had me becoming friendlier and friendlier with all the parts of myself, so that now more and more I'm able to meet that and go, oh, I see you there. I see you. What are we worried about? And, maybe it'll be okay. And I have my ways of dealing with it. But tell me about self-doubt and why it doesn't have to be a sign that everything is bad and wrong.
Yeah. That's a really important conversation. And, I struggled with self-doubt as long as I can think. And I thought often for me, it was it's a mental conversation ultimately, right? There's the self, or there's a part of the self that then doubts something. And so it shows up in all kinds of areas. And for me, it often was part of my worth. Am I really worth it? Can I do this thing that I want? Am I worth it? Am I good enough for that? And am I worthy of it? And so the previous part of my life was all about tuning that voice out by working really hard and by proving myself to myself ultimately, and by becoming the best looking, best in sports, best in school. I would try to be number one. And so whenever I was number one, I would silence the doubt for a short time. But then, as we know, that is a bottomless pit that you have to keep feeding. At some point, you're going to run into a wall because you're feeding a mechanism that ultimately stems from a place of scarcity, that stems from a place of I am not enough. And so later on in my life, I discovered the principle of wholeness. And wholeness is about full integration. It's about saying that every part of me That's I feel that I experience is a part of me. So if it's a part of me, and if I believe in a greater power, God in my case, then would I think that the creator of existence would intentionally place something inside of me that is inherently wrong or bad so that I end up living my life in a perpetual war with myself? That makes no sense. None at all. It's like, especially because and you can only make sense of that if you believe in a malevolent God, an vengeful God, and a God that ultimately wants to torture you. If you believe in that, then you can make the argument for it. But to me, that cannot be possible because God in itself, because it's an all-powerful, all-knowing being, cannot be anything else other than all-loving. And so I came to that conclusion through my own experience, not through reading scripture or text and then saying, yeah, because it says here. No, I went through it. I experienced it through meditation, through plant medicine, through contemplation and prayer. And eventually I was like, yeah, I get it now. Okay. And so then I went, okay, if that's the case, now let me put it to the test. So I have this thing that I've been fighting against my whole life that I call self-doubt. And I find plenty of evidence in the personal development world by a lot of people saying you got to crush your doubt, you got to silence your doubt. I've tried that. It doesn't work. So then I started to give love to the doubt. So what does that mean? Remember, doubt is a conversation. And so I just started speaking to it. And I was like, hey, doubt, you're a part of me. And it's okay that you feel this way. It's okay that you feel that I'm not enough. But I'm here to tell you that, I am. And at the same time, I get it, why you're feeling this way. So I started to do two things with it: to bring compassion to it, which helped it feel safe, and to bring leadership to it, to help it educate and to help it grow. It's like it's a part of me that is maturing, that is growing. And so when you look at the result, ultimately all human behavior is a reflection of the relationship that you have to all aspects of yourself. So procrastination, in this case, is a reflection of how you're relating to self-doubt. If you relate to it in a sense of like, oh my God, you're bad, I need to run away from you, leave me alone, or I hate you, go away, then you're going to have to go into procrastination, because procrastination means there's an action that you associate a lack of safety to, a fear to. So you have to avoid it. But you avoid it because you're avoiding your self-doubt. If you embrace the self-doubt, you no longer have a need to avoid the behavior. So then the behavior starts to naturally shift. And this is where you don't have
can we do a test on can we use me as an example on this? I want to drill down deeper.
100%.
I want to use this podcast as an example. So
Great.
This podcast was a seed in my mind for years. But there were things I didn't know. I didn't know the title of it. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be about. There were things I didn't know. And so I didn't. And I kept using what I don't know. My lens was very focused on, okay, but as soon as this drops in, I'll start. As soon as I know X, Y, and Z, as soon as I am super clear who my audience is.
Yeah.
And so my flavor of procrastination looked like quest for more information. I'll do it as soon as. Yeah. And so I'm tricking myself. So if you and I were talking about this 3 years ago, and I was saying, and you were saying, what are your dreams? What are you looking forward to? I'm like, there's this podcast sitting in the back of my mind where I want to have beautiful conversations with people who have deep experience and interesting perspective. Yeah. But that's all I know. That's all I know. I can't do anything with that. What would you say to me?
Great. So in that case, I'm hearing there are two parts. There is the part that says what I want. I want to have a podcast. I want to talk about these things because these are things that are interesting to me. And maybe I want to talk to these kind of people because these are cool people, right? That part is giving you a blueprint. It's like, I want this and this way and with these people. Got it. Done. That's super easy. But then there's another part, which in this case we can call it doubt. That's saying what? What's that part saying about what the other things that you want?
It's incomplete. There's not enough information. How will I talk to? So one of my talk tracks would be, okay, I know who I want to talk to. How do I either convince them to come on because I don't even know what this is about
Yeah.
enough to extend an invitation.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the things that was going on. For example, so the blueprint feels incomplete. And like I'm going to walk out onto one of my structures and the bridge is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And I shall fall into the abyss.
Great, right? So,
Right.
so there's the voice of the doubt. There's what I know, and then there's conversation that you have about what you know, and that conversation is not enough. And so there's two things you could do then. There's one, you could just meet the part, it's called the doubter where she's at, and say, hey, what I hear is you feel scared. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay.
Oh, I'd fight you though. I'd fight you on that because here's my brain. I'd be like, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anything. I'm like, I'm just not ready. So I do this.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to look at 3 years ago me.
Yeah. You could say, okay, why don't you feel you're not ready?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I would guarantee I'd get you down to, okay, I feel I'm scared.
Yes.
Right?
That
And
makes
so
sense to me.
now you have a choice. Women get this far better than men, by the way. When you're scared, a man will think, okay, let me give you a solution to your fear.
Yes.
Right? But a woman, what will a woman do when another woman says, I'm so scared?
We sit with it.
Yeah.
We
Say,
acknowledge
honey,
it. Yep.
Oh,
I got you.
I hear you. I hear you. Oh, yeah, I know it sucks. I'm sorry. And immediately, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for acknowledging me. Thank you for not trying to change me. And the moment that happens, your nervous system starts to regulate. Everything starts to slow down. It starts to fall into place. And so the same happens with that part. That part now goes from, hey, 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 to, oh. When that happens, the part now feels safe. The second thing that you do now is now you take it by the hand. It's
This
like,
is the leadership
hey,
part.
exactly. It's like, hey,
Got it.
look, I get it that you don't feel that we don't know enough. That's okay. But you know why we're doing this? We're doing this so we can learn more. Because the best way to learn is to take action. And it's okay that it's scary. Oh, really? It's okay? And this is how we're going to learn? Oh, all right. And if you do that, I promise you, your need to procrastinate will either significantly reduce or disappear completely.
The way that you were describing it, what I can imagine going that path, and I really appreciate your insertion of leadership. Because I've definitely heard before this idea of, in my language, be friendly with all of the parts of yourself. Allow them to be. But this idea of also offering leadership is really a key and important point that I believe 3 years ago would have made my procrastination boring to me. I would have become bored with my own story around the procrastination, right? And, you know, it's interesting because what you describe is ultimately exactly what happened. I started to do the work and started to realize I was living into, what if I lived into a question instead of answers? So if I lived into not the answer of, oh, well, I'm going to get all the right people and it's going to be all the right things and we'll have the right audience. I started to live into the question, what's possible if we try? And that question changed everything. And then it turns out I have a life partner who, when I began to say, oh, I want to do this podcast, was like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, wait, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean just do it? Where have you come from? And he said, no, that's okay. And he, as a startup guy, I know this is your work too, so you probably work with this personality. He's like, if you're not a little bit embarrassed when you ship, you waited too long. So you don't want to be ready when you hit that first record button. And so starting to let that in. And this is just a funny story. I was like, okay, I'm ready. So he did all this research for me and we're looking at equipment and platforms and where to record. And he did all this research. He ordered everything, set everything up for me. And I came in and I panicked. Mario, I was like, no, I am not ready. And so he took it, he packed it all up. And I was like, what are you doing? He goes, well, let's just send it back. I was like, no, well, I'm going to do it. He goes, you don't need it sitting here giving you pressure. We'll send it back. We'll just order it again.
Yeah.
So we sent it all back 2 weeks later. It was 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. We ordered it all back and we just hit go. But what it was that balance, and I didn't have language for it. And one was creating space for it, me letting it be true, having a partner who could let it be true and not try to modify it or change it or push me or worse. There was certainly no inkling of, but who are you to think why would you do that? How are you going to make money? There was none of that. But there was this gentle leadership as well of taking me by the hand, as you describe, and showing me a way. Okay, not that way. Okay, we can go backward. There's nothing wrong with a step forward, step back, step forward, step back. So this key of exercising leadership with our self-doubt or any of these voices that you had already named around, I don't like how my body looks. I don't like that I'm not getting into the gym. I don't like how I'm, in my language, I'm hiding behind or self-medicating from the world with food or technology or drink or whatever the vice might be. Thank you for that. That's a big deal. Why do you know this?
Because I've lived it many times. Fall into all the vices that you can name, from alcohol to drugs to weed, to cheating to porn to stealing to lying. I did all of it, and I went through a journey of taking full responsibility and really looking at myself and no longer blaming the world and acknowledging with people that, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I lied to you. Yeah, I cheated. Yeah, I stole. I did all the things. And
Ooh.
that was really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Because it confronted me and it brought me to face with, I have a choice now. I can either say that, yeah, I'm just a piece of shit and a terrible human being, or I can say I made mistakes, I messed up, and I cleaned up, and I cleared things, and now I will do better. And I'll do better because that's what a leader does. And if I cannot do better, if I keep treating myself or relating to myself as a bad person, as a quote unquote piece of shit, right? Because if I'm operating from that place, which we always do, we always operate from who we believe we are, then I will perpetuate those behaviors. So it was incredibly hard because everything inside of me screamed, yeah, you clean up, make up for it, but you're forever going to be a bad person. And that was really hard to overcome until I learned the concept of forgiveness.
Okay, so many places I want to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so two things that are coming up for me. First is this idea of taking responsibility.
Yeah.
For ourselves, for who we are, for our impact, for mistakes we've made. What was the moment for you that A, caused you to do that? And B, what does taking responsibility look like before you even get to the cleaning it up with everybody else? Yeah. I hear you talking about this relationship to yourself. What does self-responsibility in relationship to you internally look like and sound like? So
I would give credit to the Landmark Forum, the Landmark Education. I've done their coaching programs, and that was the first coaching program I've done in my life. And it was so confronting where I wanted to run away because it just, I remembered the first time I was brought up to the microphone where I was complaining about my, family members and how they've been treating me and how, how bad they were with me and all of that. And then the coach asked me, what part are you playing in that? And I never even considered that. I was like, what do you mean? What part am I playing in that? Like, I'm the victim here, clearly, And he said, yeah, what part are you playing in that? And then I slowed down a lot. And he helped me reflect and just see what I have been bringing into these relationships. And he said, how often have you actually talked about the way that you feel? And I was like, well, I haven't. They should know this. This is, and I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden I started to see it, the pattern. And I was like, oh my goodness. I never talk about how I really feel. I always just swallow what I feel, what I really feel, and think, why? Because I have a massive people pleaser identity running the show. I'm afraid of conflict. And then it's like, and then it started to dawn on me. It's like, oh, yeah, but who's responsible for actually having a conversation where we can clear conflicts? If people don't know that, how are they going to know that? And I was like, oh my goodness, this is me. And that's just opened a whole closet where I saw that I've been running my whole life from having difficult conversations and just tolerating behavior from other people and never giving them a chance to actually realize that what they're doing, I'm not happy with. And so I was brought to then to really see that if I want to have a more conscious effect, or if I want to have more agency over my life, over how I live my life, I need to really take a look at who am I being, not just what am I doing. Who am I being inside my relationships? And am I being lying? Am I being hiding? Am I being avoidant? And am I being manipulative? And so that's when I started to see it. And I just had a very simple choice. It's like the only way to change my life is if I change my way of being. And that means I need to look at myself, and I need to actually make a change within myself. And yeah, that was the kickoff. Does that answer the question?
There it is. It does. And, I really want to bow to the journey that you have been on and that you bothered to take yourself there. And one of the things that comes up for me is, a clue that we're not in the fullness of our aliveness is when we're in that victim blaming space.
No.
Or the alternative could be, and I don't know about you, but this victim to overcoming story, they're so intertwined that I know in my experience, I could go from I'm the victim and nobody sees me and look what everybody's doing, to overcoming and why are they all such fools because I'm the only one who's got it figured out. Right?
Yep.
And so there's this vacillation between these two extraordinary opposing energies, none of which allow us to be restful in the middle, to look at what is. And what I hear you describing is that deeply courageous act of encountering yourself.
Yeah.
And all that you are, and creating a space where you had an invitation to do so. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that with us, because here's the next part of the question for me is this idea of forgiveness. And this is something I've done a lot of sort of study and writing, really ruminating on. And I actually have an episode on forgiveness entirely with a forgiveness coach. And it's complex. You talk to 15 different people, you get 20 different responses depending on the day. What is forgiveness and how do you do it? So for you, what is forgiveness and how did you do it?
Yeah, great question. So I'm a very practical person. And for me, I always ask myself, why? Why should I forgive? What's the point? Because my previous understanding was forgiveness is saying what you did was okay. And here's a wild card for you just doing it again. Because so what? You're a human being, we all make mistakes. So there you go. Do it again, if you want it. And that just never resonated with me. To me, forgiveness was I had this passive type of persona, this weak persona in mind that if you forgive, you're a weak person and you just let people walk over you. So you need to be more diligent. You must not forget. You must remember, and then you must somewhat, facilitate a form of payback. I'll show you. There's a revenge in there. And as part of what I shared with you earlier from the Landmark Forum, is like I started to ask myself about my ways of being, about my way that I've been living life. And clearly, I came to the conclusion that my way wasn't working. Because if it was working, I would have already gotten what I wanted. And there was lots of things that I didn't get. And so I was like, okay, let me also open myself up to forgiveness. And I don't quite remember where I got it from, but I intuitively, I would say that it happened during one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, where I was brought to re-experience a lot of my childhood memories, some of them traumatic, some of them very painful. And I could see there were these two timelines. There was one, which is the way that I had been living inside. And then there was one that just brought this endless sense of acceptance, and that said, it's okay. It's okay that it happened. It's okay. It was meant to happen. It's part of a greater plan. And as I leaned into this other stream, all of a sudden I could feel this weight leaving my body. You know, this, I often say this in conversations, is it felt like I was swimming underwater and I was trying to gasp for air, and I couldn't. It was just like, and then all of a sudden I broke through the surface and I got this sensation of I can breathe, and I can let go of the panic of I can't breathe. And so I had this full-on experience of forgiveness, and it was also coming to grasp with God, because I felt so guilt-ridden and shameful about my whole life and what I've done in so many instances, that it was like this something that I call God held me the whole time and said, I got you. It's okay, son. It's okay. It's okay. Let it go. And I could just weep and cry and release. And I didn't feel any more sense of judgment afterwards. And so for me, forgiveness is a realization. It's a realization that what happened because it's part of a greater plan. But it's not in denial of the pain that it caused. Because if you deny the pain, you can easily go into spiritual bypassing and say,
Yes.
the guy killed your brother, but it's all part of a greater plan. This guy raped you. Just forgive him. It was all divine timing. That's bullshit. Feel the pain.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Feel it, because it's real. And also there should be consequences. If somebody caused you harm, there should be consequences to it. 100%. It's not this, forgive, forget, and bye-bye. But it's ultimately coming into an understanding of like all the pain that you experienced is part of a greater plan. And if you can heal it and integrate it, it will make you so incredibly strong and so wise that then you realize it was meant to happen. And for me, at that point, the realization then helps me go, you know what? I let go of it. Because holding on to it would fight against my belief that there is a greater plan for everything that happens. And so for me, that realization then leads to the conclusion of letting go of the grudge, the judgment, and that to me leads to forgiveness. That's how I would describe it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. It aligns with my experience as well. And I'm just fascinated by this because I think we hear so much about forgiveness. We talk about forgiveness. We get the idea of forgiveness, and it is so often collapsed with this idea of giving people a pass, which is what you described, right?
Exactly.
And to realize that forgiveness, that in the absence of forgiveness, I know in my experience, all I'm doing, if there was one transgression against me, and I'm putting all of that in air quotes, and I run it over and over and over again, I am re-punishing myself. I am re-experiencing that 1,000, 10,000 times.
Yep.
And then it breeds resentment. It's a serious calorie burn. When I want my creativity and my strength and my intellectual fortitude pointed in directions that are of service to me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the word acceptance, because I know in my experience, I realized as I was doing work around presence and healing myself, that the first forgiveness needed to be to me for whatever I felt like I put myself in that situation, or I was a fool, or how could I be so stupid as to let something happen? Right?
Exactly.
And so that self-forgiveness, to meet myself, come to acceptance, and then to realize somewhere along the way, forgiveness happened. And I didn't know where. It just suddenly was done. And so I really appreciate you having that description as well, that it isn't something we can effort and muscle our way through. And let's be real, sometimes forgiveness, it's not time yet, right? The day after a traumatic event is not the day to talk about forgiveness. Back to your spiritual bypassing. But there comes a time when I think we realize the cost is too high. And so for you in that ayahuasca ceremony, and I really love this visual of being able to see two timelines. And I want to offer that to the listener, and I'm claiming that as a tool to imagine those two timelines and think, what is possible? Here's the one I remember. And in sacred storytelling, we will often use a practice of telling a story for the last time. And we bring ceremony to it. So tell your story the way you've always told it, with the awareness this will be the last time you ever tell it this way.
I love that.
And then we would capture it on a piece of paper or in a painting or a drawing. We might capture bullet points. We might write the whole story out and then read it. It might be a poem, whatever it looks like. But we are aware it's the last time. And then sometimes in witness and in community, we take that story, we shred it, we burn it, we flush it, we, whatever we want to do with it. But we eliminate it from our system and we claim a new story by creating new space for it. And this idea of two timelines is such a beautiful practice. Is that something you've used since outside
I've
of the
used it
ayahuasca?
in meditations. Yeah, I've used it in guided meditations with my clients.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. So with your clients, tell me about your work. I know you work mostly with founders and you are bringing this idea. I mean, you're a business coach. You're supporting them in their business and their work and the achievement of their dreams and creating something in the world where there was nothing. Yeah. And you're doing it by bringing them into their own experience with themselves. Yeah. Do I have that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So tell me how you work with them, who reaches out to you and why?
Yeah. So I'd say the type of business owner, the founder that reaches out to me knows that they're stuck in their business, but they're stuck not because they're lacking strategy, because, their lead generation is wrong or their sales process is messed up, or their hiring process isn't optimized. They know that. They have a sense of, I know what I'm not doing that I should be doing. Or I know that I should be spending way more time on needle moving activities. I have them clearly laid out, but I'm not. I know I should be recording my first podcast,
right?
But I'm not. Right? It's the gap between I know and I'm doing. And what we do is, on the one side, is classical business coaching. It's like developing a plan, goals, breaking that down into process-driven activities that you can focus on a daily basis, making it super, super clear that you know where you want to go and what needs to happen. But that's the small part. That's the easy part. Then comes to understand, why are you not doing what you need to do? And so then we look from what's the behavior, then we go to what's the perception that you're in. The perception is, I don't know enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready, what if something bad happens, what if I fail? These are all of the perceptions. And any perception will determine what's possible in your behavior and what isn't. And so then you go, okay, well, I can't make more time for me to focus on needle movers. I had a client the other day, a wonderful woman from New York, and I asked her, who makes your time schedule? And she says, well, me. I said, yeah, but you keep telling me that you can't make more time, but you're the one in charge. I said, I would believe it if you said I work for someone who determines my hours and how I work and when I work, but you're your own boss. Mm-hmm. And she said, oh. So immediately you're challenging their ongoing belief system that prevents them from saying, let me block out my first 3 hours in the morning and add and complete the needle moving activities. And so then you removed, I actually can do this. But then what's the next level? The next level is, I don't want to do this. Okay, why don't you want to do this? Well, what if I fail? Okay, so now we have a level, we go a level deeper, we look into the identity. And so the identity here says, I'm a failure. Because you don't go from I'm a success to thinking, what if I fail? You think from the level of identity that creates your perception. So I'm a failure is running the show. It's determining what I can't do and what I can't do. And so you're operating in this survival kind of system. And when you're operating in survival, you cannot scale a business. It is virtually impossible, because what you need to scale is you need to increase your leverage. So you need to increase leverage in terms of I need a personal brand so that one post I make reaches 1,000 people rather than one post reaches 2 people. That's more leverage. I need to hire 3 people so that when I make one decision, it moves 5 levers at the same time rather than me trying to move 3 levers with my own energy, with my own time and effort. And so that requires you to get out of this survival chaos kind of operating system. But if I tell you all of that, on top of an identity that says I'm a failure, good luck. You will never be able to implement it because it's like telling an alcoholic, someone who identifies as an alcoholic, to stop drinking alcohol.
Yep.
They get it. They're like, yeah, of course I should stop, but they won't because they're identified with that. And so what we do then is we trace back where they took on this identity, because these identities, they're called survival identities for a reason. They happened in a moment in time where the psyche of the person felt threatened. And this could be a lower T trauma. Maybe you were in the kitchen and then you dropped one of the dishes and your mother screamed at you out of nowhere and said, "How could you be so stupid?" And you went, and you had this incredible fright. And then maybe your sister was sitting there and says, "Yeah, you're so stupid." And so you felt like this absolute loser in that moment.
And it's stuck.
Exactly, right? And so in that moment, you feel traumatized. And so now you're building a response, a survival response to that. And the survival response to that could be now you become a controller, right? From I'm a failure to I got to be in control of the situation so this will never happen again. And so now the controller runs the show as the business person. So that can be great when you're starting a business, because when you're in control of everything, you know what you need to do, you know how to do it, right? Everything is determined on you. You think 5 times about before you make a mistake, and so you execute, and it can work for you in the beginning. But if you go,
Mario, I'm laughing because I've tried to have a personal assistant 3 different times. And I have been unable. Now, I'm going through a shift now, and I'm confident that the next person I will be able to work with. But it's a practice. It's such a practice. And I think to your point, I'm doing the right things. I'm interviewing. I know I'm hiring quality people. This is over 10 years. I know what I want them to do. And then I have this break between actually being able to release into either delegation or trust, or sometimes trusting myself. Do I even believe I'm letting go and giving them the right things?
Exactly.
So I just really want to acknowledge that spot right there, the controller. Yeah. If you want it done right, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of mentality. Yeah.
That breaking free from that is you having to go back to the place where it was formed, because that part of you is still alive. We're like, the past doesn't exist. Well, no and yes. It exists in your psychology, and that means there's a part of you that's still stuck in that moment, and it's still going, "Oh my God, I messed up. I gotta be in control of everything." And so we need to go back to that part and let it know, hey, it's okay. You can let go. You didn't mess up. This was just natural. It happens. Really? And so we can then dissolve these moments, and that helps you let go of these mechanisms. Now, does this happen like, boom, done, that's it? No, because you built an identity literally out of it. So it requires a conscious re-educating of your inner world, which is where the leadership aspect that I spoke about earlier comes in, where you then teach these parts, where you go, wait a minute, being in control does not help us realize our goal of building a 7-figure business or an 8-figure business. Releasing control and giving it to others actually helps us. Really? Yes. Here's how it does that. Oh, okay. Oh, let's try that. And so then you get into this habit of being able to take the actions required to scale consistently.
Right here is such an interesting place, because what I hear you describing is the void, right? And what that means to me is when we've begun to deconstruct a way of being in the world, but we don't yet have the thing that replaces it. And in my experience, that can be scarier and more foreboding than living out a pattern we know isn't constructive, but we understand.
Yeah.
I don't know who I am if I step into this void and I don't have this identity. So what do I trust? Who do I trust? I don't have experience to say I can trust myself here. And it's such an interesting place to think about the level of support that as coaches we bring, and that your process specifically brings, to nurturing somebody, meeting them consciously through the void to discover what is possible there. And that it is safe, that it is valuable, that it optimizes and creates great results, in addition to feeling good and perpetuating peace, is what comes up for me when I'm listening to you talk.
Yeah.
My nervous system settles. I feel something akin to peace. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot that needs to get done. And that's the end of the sentence. It's not there's a lot that needs to get done. How am I going to do it? I'm not enough. I don't have enough people. Right? It's just, there's a lot that needs to get done.
Yeah.
What's for lunch?
Yeah, exactly.
And then let's go do it.
Exactly.
It's really beautiful. I bow to the process. So you work with the identity, you're nurturing them through the void. And then I'm imagining one of the things that I know is most powerful in my experience is helping people to have a vernacular and language to understand these ideas, and a different way of talking to themselves using different words and language and tools. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a whole new way of relating to yourself, and it naturally creates a more expansive life. The experience of life now becomes bigger, which is ultimately what everyone wants. No business owner wants the money for the sake of the money. We want the money for the sake of what it allows us to experience. And so my philosophy is experience the expansion as you're moving to the goal, which then ultimately makes the goal meaningless, because you're like, if I reach it or not, doesn't really matter. My life is really full. But what I've noticed, interestingly enough, is people that use these kind of processes, they either hit their goals or they far supersede them for something much better. But either way, they get something way better than they anticipated, because they are being expansive moment to moment to moment to moment. And we can have a whole nother conversation around magnetism and attraction.
Yes.
From there, you just bring all these wonderful things into your life. And to me, the great thing about that is you don't have to think about it all the time. You don't have to say, what do I want? Okay, I'm manifesting this. No, it just unfolds naturally, and it's a much more a more peaceful kind of process in existence, less overwhelmed, less figuring it out, more let me surrender into the greater intelligence of the source, creator, God. And yeah, that's a very fun ride.
Very fun ride. And that's why this podcast is called Crazy Beautiful Truth. I believe that there is a crazy beautiful truth at play that I only have this much, a very small line of sight into, because this crazy beautiful truth that's got me and that's got you and that put us all here at the same time, allowed us all to be here at the same time, has a bigger imagination than I could ever hope to connect into. What haven't we talked about today that you would like listeners to take away or hear?
Well, we dove into a lot of fun hoops, a lot of value there. Somehow the word peace comes up and the importance of it. I find that especially when you're a growth-orientated person, peace can easily become a later thing. Let me go into this great adventure, and I'm fighting the dragons, and I'm saving the princess, and the classic hero's journey kind of thing, more from a male perspective told now. But it's this exciting adventure, and it's beautiful. It's great. I love it. It's very exciting, and in there are so many opportunities for peace. Because peace isn't this kumbaya, zen, just quiet and just... No, peace is, for me at least, it's being fully alive, to go full circle, in every experience. It's like I can have peace while being angry. Because if I'm fully present with that anger, there is a sense of, okay, we're in this, we're here. Like, yes, like I'm saying yes to the moment. And that to me is worth a lot because you don't know where life takes you. We all like to believe that, yeah, by next year I am here and I'm doing this and I'm making this and da 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 da. And, we'll have this. We all like to believe that, but nobody really knows whether tomorrow is actually there. So with that, doesn't it make sense for us to bring peace to every experience, moment to moment, so that if tomorrow is the last day, we can say, you know what? I've lived fully. It's okay.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'll tack onto to follow up on that, as you talked about many felt experiences, emotional experiences, stories and beliefs, this idea that we can challenge what we believe about them. The idea that peace, for example, equals static stillness and nobody's moving and there's no tension.
Yeah.
It coexists, that we and our nervous systems, our body is made for more than one felt experience at a time. And that's a valuable add. Thank you for pointing to that. Where can people find you if they want to talk about? I'm going to encourage everybody. Your TEDx will be linked below as well. Your LinkedIn profile is the best place. Is that right?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and for me, I'd love for people to just reach out and to, let me know that you found me on Sheila's podcast and The Crazy Beautiful Truth. And just share what resonated. Maybe also what didn't resonate.
Yes.
I wanna genuinely know what you thought about this conversation. What about it spoke to you? What sparked something? That's it, really. If there's anything that comes from that naturally, organically, beautiful. If it doesn't, if you just want to say hi and drop in, that's perfect too.
So good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this work. Thank you for working with time zones from the other side of the world to make this work. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me on, Sheila. Wonderful conversation.